The year was 1957. Karachi, in a city buzzing with the chaos of a newborn nation. A boy was born into a middle-class family, unaware that one day his bat would echo louder than any slogan, louder than any war cry, louder than any doubt cast upon Pakistan cricket. His name Javed Miandad. From the beginning, life was never easy. Javed's father worked hard, but raising a large family in Karachi wasn't simple. There was no luxury, no easy pathway, no golden spoon. But there was one thing in abundance: dreams. Javed was a boy who refused to stop dreaming. On the streets of Karachi, where broken bats and taped tennis balls were all children could afford, Javed learned to fight, to improvise, to play with hunger in his heart and fire in his eyes. Neighbors often complained, "Ye larka, din raat surf cricket khelta hai." But Javed didn't care. His bat was his language, his playground, his kingdom. He was never the tallest, never the strongest, but he had something far greater, an unshakable belief that he belonged. In the narrow lanes, he sharpened his timing against walls, perfected his strokes against shadows, and trained his mind against doubt. His early life was not a tale of privilege, but of relentless passion. He was mocked for being too short, too raw, too reckless, but the young boy carried something inside him that no one could measure: himmat, courage. By the age of 16, his name had started spreading in Karachi's cricket circles. People whispered, "There's this kid, too young, too aggressive." But mark my words, he's different. At an age when most teenagers were busy with books, Javed was already crafting destiny with his bat. He broke into the under-19 circuit, silencing critics with his fearless batting. Every time he walked to the crease, he carried not just a bat, but the weight of his family's hopes, the pride of his neighborhood, and the unspoken dream of Pakistan's struggling cricket culture. And then came his first big leap. The Pakistan selectors noticed. Here was a boy, barely 17, with the audacity to stare bowlers in the eye. No matter how tall, how fast, or how intimidating they were, he was selected for Pakistan's national team in 1976, against New Zealand. That debut wasn't just an entry into cricket, it was the beginning of a storm. Nobody knew it yet, but this boy from Karachi's streets was about to redefine how Pakistan played cricket. Javed Miandad's story had just begun. When Javed Miandad walked out for his very first Test match in 1976 against New Zealand, the world expected little. He was just a boy, only 19 years old, facing bowlers far more experienced, far more intimidating. But Javed was never one to be scared. He stepped onto the crease with a confidence that looked almost arrogant to some. His bat spoke louder than his age. In his debut series, he didn't just score runs. He made a statement. By the end of that tour, Javed Miandad had a century against his name, becoming the youngest Pakistani to score a Test 100. The cricketing world suddenly sat up and noticed. Who is this kid? But that was only the beginning. Later that same year, against India in Karachi, Javed played an innings that would define him forever. He scored a blistering 163 runs, hammering the Indian bowlers, showing a fearlessness rarely seen before. It wasn't just his shots, it was his attitude. He stared bowlers in the eye, walked down the pitch, and made the field his stage. This wasn't just cricket, this was theatre drama, a declaration that Pakistan had found its fighter. For a country searching for heroes in sport, Javed was a revelation. He was raw, unpredictable, but undeniably brilliant. He wasn't afraid of confrontation. If a bowler sledged, he sledged back. If a fielder mocked, Javed answered with runs. He carried Karachi's street fighter spirit into international cricket. And suddenly, Pakistan had a batsman who played with fire in his belly. By the time he was 20, Miandad was not just a player, he was a phenomenon. Fans adored him because he reflected their own struggles. He wasn't polished like English cricketers or technically perfect like Indians. He was scrappy, passionate, and willing to fight until the last ball. But perhaps his biggest breakthrough came not with his bat, but with his mindset. Javed brought to Pakistan cricket something it desperately lacked: belief. He showed the team they could stand toe-to-toe with giants like India, Australia, and the West Indies. He became the symbol of resistance, the man who refused to bow down, no matter the odds. And in those early years, Javed's audacity was contagious. It wasn't just his centuries, it was his body language, his refusal to accept defeat. He became a nightmare for bowlers, a headache for captains, and a lifeline for Pakistan. The boy from Karachi's narrow streets had broken through. He was no longer a dreamer. He was Pakistan's rising star, and the world was beginning to realize that Javed Miandad was destined for greatness. By the 1980s, Javed Miandad was no longer just a young prodigy. He had become the very backbone of Pakistan cricket. Every time Pakistan seemed to stumble, there was one man who carried the team on his shoulders: Javed Miandad. One of the most defining moments of his career came in 1986. Sharjah, Pakistan faced India in the Australasia Cup final. The atmosphere was electric, the pressure unbearable. Pakistan needed 4 runs off the last ball. Millions of fans held their breath. Standing at the crease was Miandad.com, but burning with determination. Chetan Sharma ran in to bowl. The delivery was full, angling towards Miandad's pads. And then Javed swung his bat and sent the ball sailing into the stands for 6. The crowd erupted. History was written, and Miandad was immortalized. That one shot wasn't just a 6. It was a nation's heartbeat. It became the symbol of Pakistan's fighting spirit. A reminder that the game isn't lost until the very last ball. But Miandad's greatness wasn't just about one match. His entire career was a series of battles where he saved Pakistan again and again, against the fearsome West Indies pace attack, against Australia's aggression, against India's cunning spinners. Miandad stood tall. He ended his Test career with 8,832 runs at an average of over 52, making him one of the finest batsmen of his era. He played in 6 World Cups, another record that showcased his longevity and consistency. He was the glue that held Pakistan's batting together for nearly 2 decades. Bowlers feared him not because of sheer power, but because of his relentless determination and unmatched cricketing brain. Miandad wasn't just a batsman. He was a strategist, a mind reader. He knew how to unsettle bowlers, how to rotate strike, how to take the game deep. He was unpredictable, crafty, and always hungry. And that hunger reached its peak in 1992. At the twilight of his career, Javed became the mentor, the anchor of Imran Khan's cornered Tigers. During the 1992 World Cup, battling injuries, struggling with fitness, Miandad still stood firm. With his grit and experience, he guided young players like Inzamul Haq, teaching them how to handle pressure. His presence in the middle order gave Pakistan stability and eventually the World Cup trophy. For Pakistan, Miandad was more than numbers. He was a fighter, a survivor, a man who could turn despair into hope. His innings were not just about runs. They were about resistance, resilience, and revival. The Karachi street boy had now conquered the world. By the time Javed Miandad hung up his boots, he had already written himself into cricket's history books. But for millions of Pakistanis, he wasn't just a cricketer. He was a symbol of resilience. He taught a generation that greatness isn't born in comfort. It's forged in the fires of struggle. Miandad's legacy was more than statistics. Yes, he scored over 16,000 international runs across formats. Yes, he played for nearly 2 decades at the highest level. Yes, he hit that unforgettable 6 in Sharjah. But what truly defined him was the spirit he carried. Every time he walked onto the field, he inspired a culture of fearlessness in Pakistan cricket. Before Miandad, Pakistan often played with hesitation, carrying the weight of being underdogs. But Miandad's street fighter attitude changed that narrative. He showed his teammates and his country that no opponent was too big, no situation too hopeless. With him, Pakistan cricket found its confidence. His influence extended beyond his own career. As a mentor and coach, he guided young talents like Inzamul Haq, Rashid Latif, and many others. They didn't just learn batting techniques from him. They absorbed his mindset, his refusal to surrender, his art of turning pressure into opportunity. Even today, decades later, Javed Miandad's name brings a smile to cricket lovers. Fans remember his quirky antics on the pitch, his fiery confrontations, his determination to win at all costs. For Indians, he was the eternal rival. For Pakistanis, he was the eternal hero. For the world, he was a fighter who made cricket richer, fiercer, and more dramatic. But perhaps his greatest gift was the message his journey carried. You don't need perfect circumstances to achieve greatness. You need hunger, courage, and belief. From the narrow alleys of Karachi to the biggest stages of world cricket, Javed Miandad proved that the size of your heart matters more than the size of your circumstances. His life is a lesson for every dreamer that even when the world doubts you, you must never doubt yourself. When future generations look back at Pakistan cricket, they will see Miandad not just as a batsman, but as a warrior, A man who fought for every run, who carried his nation's pride, and who left behind a story that will inspire forever. Javed Miandad's name will always echo with one timeless truth: champions are not born, champions are made through struggle, through fire, and through an unbreakable spirit.